Just setting things up. Good evening. I see a couple folks hanging out. Thank you very much for visiting. So let's have a look over here. Yeah, we're there. We did it. Okay, it's 6th of October, Sunday evening. I don't know how you guys are doing, but it's very, very hot over here in Las Vegas. It's very unusual. Well, no. It's normal to be really hot, but we're already in early October and we're still in the hundreds. So, whew, yeah. So probably figured out. I don't know if any of you got my little mini short that I put on YouTube. I'm trying to adapt. I'm moving pretty much everything towards the new platform, RUMBLE. But we're going to still hang out here on Sunday evenings for if there's any folks who still want to have live mini tarot readings. Eventually, I don't know when, but we'll probably doing the whole thing, everything over on the other platform. So, let's have a look here. I'm trying to be professional, so if you're just showing up randomly, you've never done this before, I know a lot of you who do show up. We've been here for many years. We're good friends. We're all regulars. We've done thousands of readings, astrology and tarot. And right now, this evening, we're just going to focus on a little bit of tarot mini readings. And if you want a reading, it's by donation. So we go over here. You go to on one of your devices or something, or phone or new tab. Go to TarotLumination.com. Go to the donate page, click the donate button, and then it'll come up with like a payment processor, like online shopping, and just scroll down to credit card, debit card thing, and enter your donation there. Kapoof. Please do not do super chat. Okay. All right, incoming. We've already got one booked this evening. Thank you very much. So, because of the way things are on YouTube right now for TarotLumination, please do not do the super chats. I know we used to do those a lot in the old days, but it's it's not really a good idea. Hello, Ivona. I see you, Ivona. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for coming to visit. So, yeah. Do not do the super chat. So the super chat is that little square rectangle at the bottom, looks like a tiny dollar bill. Do not put anything in there for a donation. Put your donation through the button that I just showed you. Also, some people, a little more old school, if you want, if you do PayPal already, you can just send a PayPal directly to my little email here, which is, if you can read that, alittlebookabout@yahoo.com. A little book about @yahoo.com. And that will come straight over here. So, I hope you guys are well. Hello, Necessary. I see you. And we got some old school regulars here. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. We'll do what we can. Actually, let me just get the magic post-it notes because we've already got a booking lined up here. Where did they all go? Okay. All right, let's sort this out. All right, so we have a reading booked for Love Triber. Let's put that on over here. Thank you so much. Love Triber got her name from the very old days of TarotLumination when people were calling it the TarotLumination Love Tribe. Remember that? Huh, man. It all seems so long, long ago. History. Good old-fashioned history. All right, so if there's anybody... Oh, hold on. Let me just go over here again. If there's anybody here who's never been here before and you're interested in tarot, the magic and the wonders of tarot, the mysteries, whoa, how do we do all that stuff? Oh, and maybe if you're the astrology, if you're interested, feel free to introduce yourselves. Type in who you are, where you are. I'm always very curious about where people are because for some reason I find it fascinating. There were times where we had hundreds or thousands of views, and on some of the shows we would have people from all over the world, anywhere from New Zealand all the way across into Australia, Philippines, Japan, India, some into the Middle East, and then into Central Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, North Africa, Scandinavia, and then back to the United States, Canada, and Central and South America. We've done it all, folks. Those were dizzy times. We're in a very different world now. The big shift happened around January 2020. I don't know if any of you can remember that far back, but it's only a few years. In my world, and I had already written a book about it years in advance, because when I was studying the astrology going forward, which is what I love to do, which is what I do over on my RUMBLE platform, I like to see patterns, and for whatever reason, these patterns tell me messages that I feel that people need to know, and I do my best to convey those messages, for better or worse. And like a lot of times with weather channels or weather reports, people always want to hear good weather. That's great, but sometimes the real value is finding out and being aware if there's any bad weather out there, because then you have a chance to prepare in advance. So everybody knows about the big storm over in the Appalachia region of America. It's a massive tragedy, a massive scandal. and it's set off a firestorm of, let's say, alternative communication in the social media world. And that alternative communication is under tremendous pressure to either shut up, self-censor, or be removed, because it goes against the narrative of what the, let's say, the leaders of America want us to believe. So I hope you are awake and alive and tuned in, aware. It's very, very important to be aware. If you're not aware now, you're going to be blindsided, starting mostly, I mean, we've already been bashed around over the last few years since January 2020. It's been a hell storm, and you can see it in the astrology. We've been talking about it for 4 years and more, as we were talking about it, anticipating even before January 2020. And I know my world has been turned completely upside down. Well, it's always upside down or upright. I don't know what it is, but let's say it just changed profoundly. And there's no going back. We've had loads of eclipses in the meantime. Massive astrological shifts. We're going through a massive astrological shift right now. These are the big, heavy, slow, unrelenting shifts that equate to what we would call evolution. Most events regarding evolution appear to happen in a very, very slow way compared to the way the human body works. The human body is geared to operate in the moment, a few minutes in the past, a few minutes in the future, but mostly here in the now. Sometimes we plan for tomorrow or the day after or the week after, but that's pretty much as far as most people's perception reaches. If you are a logistics planner and you're going, trying to sort out your next year's orders for inventory in your toy store or Christmas decorations, then you plan ahead accordingly. If you're building space rockets, you plan ahead accordingly, but that's usually only a few years. But the stuff that I focus on tends to play out over years and years, especially when we're talking about the Pluto vibe. So if you've been here over the years, I have a bit of an emphasis on Pluto simply because it seems to have the most amount of awakening associated with its movement. And I'm very interested in the phenomenon of waking, the phenomenon of evolution, and how that plays out in the human experience. You can see it. You can actually see it. Probably the biggest and most notable cycle that we can discuss today is the Pluto cycle. It's a roughly 250-year cycle, and it's not a coincidence that enormous activities are happening here on Earth right now that have an extremely eerie parallel, let's say, vibration to what happened 250 years ago in America. 250 years in America, 250 years ago in America, give or take a few years, like 5-10 years on either side, there was massive, profound change in world behavior. A bunch of people now living in the East Coast of America declared, screw this, we're not going to have anything to do with the old-fashioned way of doing things. We don't want any kings, queens, lords, ladies, emperors, dukes, justices, emperors, dictators, tyrants. We don't want any of that. We the people, we can take care of ourselves. We're smart, we're hardworking, we're pioneers. We don't need any of that. The only thing we need out of that is the functionality that allows we the people to operate as a singular, healthy organism on the world stage regarding international trade and defense. And that's it. So government was supposed to be very small and working for the people. Government by the people, for the people. And the founders knew back then that the change was revolutionary and it was not going to be well received except by the new American people. And it worked really well up to a point, but it was well established in the Declaration of Independence that inside the DNA of the United States, as it was declared back then, they already knew that the seed of upheaval and degradation was present, because it's present in everyone, everywhere, at all times. And I don't think they did the astrology, but it's represented by Pluto in Capricorn at 27 degrees in the second house in the American astrology chart. And the other key component is the Constitution itself, drafted a few years later. It's a very powerful document. It's a heavily protected document if you look at the astrology. And again, the founders knew that by creating this document and declaring a new way of operating, that they could not completely remove certain segments of human behavior. What they could reorganize human behavior and recalibrate by creating what we now call the Constitution. The Constitution recognized that inside America, American government, now that we're going to elect people to work for us as opposed to rule us, the government works for us, works for we the people. We pay them through taxes. What the founders knew is that eventually at some point corrosion would step in. The whole thing would degenerate and become corrupted, because they knew at some point, beyond the lifetime of the original founders and writers of the document, the phenomenon of human nature would unfold, and we would see the degradation, and the lust for power would increase over generations and generations and generations to where we are today, where the Constitution has been completely undermined and contaminated. It's not dead. It's not going to die. It's not going anywhere. It is the foundation of what we have here in the United States. And many other countries would love to have what we have. Some aspire and they have something similar, but they nowhere else on earth has what we have. That's why we are so that's why we're so lucky. And it's very important to keep this. And so what you might be noticing is that there's massive upheaval, revolution, deep internal conflict inside America right now. And that is basically it's almost like a reenactment of what happened 250 years ago. And why is that so? How is it so? It's because of the Pluto cycle coming full turn. A lot of you here are familiar with astrology, and you've heard of the thing called the Saturn return. Okay, it's very famous in astrology. It's famous typically for being a painful chapter in most people's lives, where the Saturn cycle, which is about 29.5 years, is completed. You're born with Saturn in a certain placement in your astrology, and then it evolves and grows, and 29.5 years later, the full manifestation of your Saturn energy is on full display, for better or worse. Some people are very fortunate and they have an abundant Saturn return. These are people who have a lot of hallmarks of success, abundance, responsibility, capability, leadership, stability that grows through them in their teens and 20s. And by the time they reach 29.5, they are already very strong and very, very stabilized. And that becomes a foundation for the next Saturn return. So by the time that they reach about 59 years old, they are typically very, very strong in their positions of power and great responsibility. That's very rare. Also, a lot of people don't want that. If you think about it in terms of Saturn energy, it requires tremendous patience, integrity, honesty, responsibility to hold and carry the energy of Saturn. Okay, so that's Saturn. Now imagine Pluto. Saturn takes 29.5 years. Pluto takes 250 years. So there is no human on existence that can have a Pluto return. You'd have to live to at least 260 years or so to get a glimpse. So far that's not happening. But we can track that degree of evolution over multiple generations. And that's why I find it so compelling for me to follow the Pluto cycle and in reverse from there back to Neptune and back to Uranus, because we can see evolution. And personally, to me, the most glaring example of evolution is what's happening in the world right now, because it correlates exactly with the Pluto cycle from 250 years ago. And why do I correlate that with America? Like, who cares? I mean, what's happening in Iran or Sudan or Bulgaria or India or Bolivia? Why would the American Pluto cycle of 250 years ago be relevant to the world today? Why not just America? My personal opinion is that what happened 250 years ago was the first time it really ever happened at the level of consciousness, where humans decided we have to consciously make a change with the way we operate in society. And so they formed the Declaration of Independence and they created a constitution, basically an operating system, a business plan about how we're going to conduct life and business in this new place called America. And it basically means giving the middle finger to these very ancient systems from over tens of thousands of years in human behavior. Excuse me. To the point where America was like, that was very revolutionary back then. And of course, very quickly after 1776, Pluto had moved into Aquarius for 20 years, and there was tremendous upheaval during that time about the activation and establishing new roots of this new way of conducting human behavior. And that was personified in what we call America today. Now, what I feel is happening across the world is exactly what happened to America 250 years ago. Does that make any sense to anybody? So, the reason I feel that is because Pluto's doing its thing again, and it's going to head into Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto and Aquarius is the generation of revolution, upheaval, the destruction of communism, and the fertilization of community. It sounds similar. Communism, community. You'd think, oh, they're the same kind of thing. No. That's what I believe we're seeing across the world right now. There are billions of people who live under tyranny, effectively different versions of communism, which is basically another version of tyranny. Look up the word tyranny, okay? Tyranny is worldwide, and it is a massive cancerous disease, and it doesn't have to exist. It exists because it can, and it exists because the human global immune system has allowed it to happen. But we have evolved over the last 250 years to the point where we, the people, all over the world, can say enough is enough is enough. And I think that's what's happening. I believe what's happening around the world today is not just an awakening of a few million people in America 250 years ago to say F you to the King of England. It is now 250 years later where about 8 billion people are saying F you to all the tyrants. and all the 8 billion people want to recalibrate society, human behavior, into something that is just the opposite from an extremely toxic type of, what's the word for it? Like feudalism or tyrannical elitist behavior, and instead turn everything into a multipolar, decentralized system across the world. So, in other words, a system that works for the individuals, a system that works for the communities, the towns, the villages, the groups of people who feel they have alignment with each other. They're not deliberately going out to destroy anyone and everything else to take what they've got. And instead, people are awarding themselves the amazing privilege to just be themselves. Because when you leave humans to it and you just use common sense, they're very good at taking care of things. If there's horrible things happening, they'll deal with it as best they can. And if they don't make it, they don't make it. There's still other humans that'll come along. But 250 years after the Declaration of Independence, we now have a structure like this in America, an extreme, I don't know if you can see my arms and hands as a sort of a chart, where my lower arms represent 330 million people, and my hands represent maybe a couple of 100,000 people. Those 100,000 people have all the power and the money and the control, and they took it slowly over a 250-year period. 250 years ago, the new America had this structure, defined by law, by decree, by the Constitution. And the founders knew that eventually the elected leaders, after the original founders died, the elected leaders would eventually start thinking, man, you know what, this is so cool. We have so much power. Let's see if we can get some more money. And some more money leads to more control. And so eventually, over 250 years, this is what happened. It reformed itself like a massive cancerous stage 4 metastatic tumor. So here we are today inside America trying to destroy this thing and turn it back to this thing. Basically a remodeling everything in America to match what things were 250 years ago. I'm just sharing my opinion. That's what I believe is going on. And it's going on a world stage because everyone and everything in the world is connected now the way it never was 250 years ago. 250 years ago, it was wooden ships to go anywhere and do anything. Today, we can do a lot of commerce just by clicking buttons. We can connect with anyone anywhere in the world with this thing called electricity if you've got it, and a smartphone if you've got it, computers, video, Rumble, X, and so on. And so lots of people get to see each other's lives. A lot of people in very, very fortunate countries are seeing how things are so miserable in less fortunate countries. There are some very obvious places like China, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Cuba, parts of Russia, that are living their lives under a tyrannical occupation. This kind of thing on a very, very extreme level. Typically, you would see that as a country that has some sort of tyrannical dictator leader who would maybe have elections, but they would be fake elections, and anybody who tried to take me down would be eliminated, literally eliminated. In America, the whole idea is that we don't do that. We do everything by the vote, by we the people. So right now, today, what I feel is happening is that the whole world is looking at the whole world and realizing, oh my God, I see what you mean, TarotLumination. It's true. It's absolutely true. We need to reconstitute the world, redeclare the Declaration of Independence, and do it for the world, not just for America. basically, why do you think there's so many millions of people who want to get into America? Even though it's a very despicable situation that's happening here, yes, there are millions of Americans who have a really, really shitty life. But there's also millions of Americans who have abundance that has almost never existed before. And other people see that, and other people want that. If you live in Sudan, or if you live in parts of, I think it's like Mozambique, or if you're in certain countries right now where you're living under extreme oppression of a maniacal leader, extreme poverty, crime up the roof, like Haiti, Dominican Republic, and different places like that, America would seem like arriving in heaven in comparison. So anyway, that's what I think is happening today, and it's happening across the world, and I feel like I'm in a fortunate position that I can observe and share, and I'm not suffering too much from things like floods and hurricanes and stuff like that. So I look at everything I do on the Rumble as like doing a weather report. Over here tonight on YouTube, I'm just doing what we used to do for the last 7 years, little Sunday Night Live mini readings. So I'd like to continue to doing that. I've done thousands of readings. I've done lots of tarot readings and astrology readings. If anybody wants deep dive personal astrology, you can get that by coming to TarotLumination.com. You can book a reading. You can discover more about what we do here and how we do it. And you will get a live personal reading, just like what we're doing here on the show tonight. But it'll be private and in person, and you will own the file when it's all done. And it will not be an AI-generated robot reading. It's a real reading from a real tarot reader and a real astrologer. There you go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's how that works. Hold on, someone else just showed up. Bright Light Beckaboo. Hey, you've been here. Yeah, I've seen you here before. Hello, Bright Light Beckaboo. All right, so let me know if you need a live mini reading. If you do, please make a donation over here directly to a little book about at yahoo.com, especially if you have PayPal. If you don't have PayPal, like I said, you just go over here. You go to TarotLumination.com, go to the donate page, pop in your donation, scroll down the payment processor, click, credit card, debit card, enter the amount, and click, and it comes over here, and then you get your reading. So we have one mini reading booked right now, and that's about it. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be a very lean evening. Let me see here. While we're here, let me have a look at the charts with you guys. You might recognize some of this. This triangle here has been lingering for probably months now, and it's going to linger for some time, probably well into 2025, give or take a few degrees. Remember, we're dealing with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, so the movement is very slow. All of these, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are hovering near the degrees of desperation. Uranus is retrograde, but eventually it's going to turn direct, and this is going to become a major crisis point over here. But it's a slow-moving crisis point, and we will feel it in the global financial system. Right now, I've noticed a few glitches in the global financial headlines because we had Venus sort of loosely opposing Uranus, and we had the Moon strongly opposing Uranus. I know I'm feeling this in an extremely personal way because I'm seeing the gyrations in the global economy, really sensitive details about, it would be like, imagine I'm one of those like sensors that they put in the ground in the Swiss Alps in order to detect avalanches. Pretend I'm one of those sensors, and what I'm detecting is a lot of this shaking in the mountains, shaking in the ground of Switzerland, which is starting to disrupt the snow on the mountains in Switzerland, which will eventually lead to an avalanche. That's what I'm sensing here. Okay, I'm just getting a glimpse of it because it's just the moon. It's hovering by, but eventually Venus is going to be in this position here. Things are going to get a lot more bumpy on the global financial arena. So, yeah, that's that one here. Oh yeah, let me just run through these quickly. I'm not going to do too much deep diving. If anybody wants the deep astrology stuff, you can book that personally with me. But for the world right now, this is how it is. If you were born today, right now, this is what your birth chart would look like. I don't know what your rising sign would be. You might be a Cancer rising, in which case your chart would look like this. Oh, wow. Oh, if you were a Libra rising, it would look like this. If you were a Capricorn rising, it would look like this. There you go. You see? But your birth sign would be a Libra. And you would have a Sagittarius moon at 0 degrees. So, the way this looks is like if this was a person, this would be somebody who's been born to live a life of very, very deep, profound, permanent, ongoing, evolutionary, grinding shifts throughout their whole life. Irreversible, irrevocable shifts. So it's a very testing kind of chart. Even though there's tremendous harmony with all these green lines and squiggles everywhere, sextiles, trines, it's still very challenging simply because Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are so close to these degrees of desperation. Actually, the moon is as well. So it's almost like being born with an extremely stressful setup with the planets, but you're blessed with a very, very powerful system of shock absorbers and insulation with all these amazing, this big, powerful grand trine over here that would allow you to live a life in such a way that you could actually experience this fundamental, shaking and shifting and grinding upheaval and still be alive and survive to tell the tale. Now, if you're, again, as a person, inside you've got this chart, part of the chart here, which is a massive T-square, where Mars is at the center, and Mars is very unhappy in Cancer. It's highly conflicted with the Sun and Mercury, highly conflicted with Chiron. It's very painful. If anyone has any significant Cancerian energy in their charts, they might be feeling it very, very queasy, unsettled, very unhappy, frightened energy, where you might be, I'm trying to think about it, like what's happening when you look out in the world. Okay, I'm going to try and do a little bit of acting here. The best way I can describe it is for this person born with Mars in Cancer, it would indicate if they had Aries rising, just let's make it simple. If they had Aries rising, they would have Mars in Cancer in the 4th house, which could indicate that there's possible extreme conflict in the home. Their home may be under attack. Their home may be at risk. Their family, the foundations of their life, their world, their place of safety, the place where they are born, is under threat. Another way to look at it is, if it is under threat, there would be a very strong sense inside to protect and defend the home and the family and the security and the foundation of your life from an external, nasty, violent threat. And so, if you think of it in a very primordial sense, for this person born today, Aries rising, a little child, and it grows up. It still has the same astrology chart 30 years from now or whichever. And some of it starts to manifest. They might wake up one morning during Libra season, and they might look around them. Like today, if they were, let's say they're an adult today. Let's scratch the child theory for now. Just think of the chart today. You might wake up in the morning, especially if you are an Aries rising, feeling that your home is very vulnerable. When you're looking out early in the morning, why do I feel so shaky, scared, and vulnerable here in my home, my sacred space where I need safety and security and comfort and family and food and nurture? And you look outside the window and you start to peer around the neighborhood and the town and the city, and you start checking your apps and everything for what's going on in the world, and you start to realize, oh my God, there's a lot of sick people out there, very sick relationships between one person and another, whole groups of people turning on each other, countries turning on each other, populations turning on their leaders, leaders turning on their populations, the exposure of really toxic, unhealthy relationships that were presented as beautiful, bountiful, Venusian, harmonious, only to discover that they were just the opposite, very, very toxic. And then you would feel that with the Chiron and Aries, like, oh my God, I feel threatened. My actual sovereign self, even though I'm safe in my home, my sovereign self feels very, very threatened and in danger. And you realize, my God, why didn't anybody tell me? I'm looking out the window of my life, my world, and realizing there's all these very toxic relationship dynamics going on. Everybody hating on each other, trying to splinter society where this race hates that race, this group of people hate that group of people, some group of people trying to deny you of your sovereignty. It's horrible. But the thing is, you've got to reveal it to heal it. And so the beauty of the situation is that you realize, oh my God, one of the worst things you can have in this world is very, very toxic, unhealthy relationships that you either take for granted or just assume all life is full of crappy, horrible, disgusting relationships, or that there is a possibility for really good, healthy relationships. But that is only possible when you, as an individual, are in your strength as your own sovereign self. And so there's this tremendous pressure and momentum to head towards the Aries North Node and head towards this thing which is very, very painful right now, which is Chiron in Aries, which symbolizes the pain of humanity on the realization that humanity has allowed itself to be disgraced and undermined by certain groups of people trusting and believing and forming powerful, unyielding, bedrock relationships with people who really do not deserve your energy. And then it forces you to splinter and break away from anything that is unhealthy. For example, I'm seeing a lot right now here where I am, through friend of a friend, where a lot of people are having cognitive dissonance and they are choosing to cling on to very, very toxic, unhealthy relationship belief systems that are actually detrimental to their health, their sovereignty. But because they're born and raised and saturated and conditioned with that toxic relationship dynamic, they refuse to give it up. People are very, very loath to give up their core belief systems because it's correlating so strongly with their sense of identity. And yet, that's what we have to do. We have to grow out of that. And it can be very, very, very painful for people to wake up and realize the best thing you can do is to be your best self. It sounds like you're being very, very selfish, but it's not true. The best thing you can do is to be the best person you can be to yourself, the strongest person with the most clarity, the most health, the most wisdom, the most information, the most strength, the most knowledge, the most honesty, integrity, compassion, patience, and love. I can't do that for you. You have to do it for yourself. You have to be that. Be loving, be loved. Anything less than that, and things start to suck, and they degrade and they devolve into what we have today. And predators know that, so they take advantage of it. Anyway, sorry, I got really carried away there. So that's what's happening right now. This is happening to the whole world. That little description storyline I told you. It might be, for example, if you are in Israel, or if you are in Iran, or if you are in, let's say, Zimbabwe, or Sudan, or Yemen, and you're looking outside your little, hut, your window, and realizing life is very, very dangerous, extremely dangerous, and you've lost so much of your sovereignty because of generations of conditioning into unhealthy relationships, and realizing this has to stop. How are you going to take action? Oh, it means I have to go outside the front door of my home and my family and start to fight. Do something active to try and heal this horrific wound. It's taken decades, if not centuries, for this to manifest with such clarity. But now we see it here. You've got to reveal it to heal it. There is a chance for healing. It's a really powerful chart for today. Tremendous power with all that green stuff going on. But it's very conflicted internally here. But the conflict is very clear. It's very, very precise, which helps you. Know your enemy. It's very, very important to know your enemy. What I just did now was basically try to describe the enemy. It's a very esoteric description, but that is the enemy. All right. I don't see any other bookings here, so we just got one mini reading, and that's it, folks. All right, let's have a look. I've got to check something. So bear with me. We're going to have to start shuffling cards in a few moments. And then we can actually get on with the mini readings, okay? Give me a second. I'm trying to coordinate a few things here behind the scenes. Okay. All right, let's start shuffling up over here. Let's have a look here. Cheers. Good evening, Love Triber. This is your mini reading coming up in just a moment. Now, some of you who've been here for a long time, you might know that sometimes we do very, very specific topics. Like if someone has a very special issue, like I would condense the issue into a few simple words, like what kind of message do we have for so-and-so tonight regarding the subject of, well, it could be, in the astrology, it could be my identity, my finances, my health, my home, my family, my relationships, my love, my romance, my career, my destiny, my health, whatever it is. It could be anything, all right? But one of the things that I love to do is a blind reading, where you have to kind of trust into nature, trust into the divinity of tarot, and understand that it's really like a simple mechanism to bring forward like a little bit of information that may not become apparent through three-dimensional consciousness. I mean, that's why people come here to get these mini readings, because they maybe can't get resolution or answers or reflections or feedback from their friends or family or partner or kids or doctor or physician, their psychiatrist, their therapist or whatever, their priest, whatever it is. And so they end up here, All right, here we go. Cards are well shuffled. I use my little, for anyone again who's visiting, I've got to say it over and over again, but all my spreads are custom. I only really have 3 spreads that I use. I studied the old-fashioned stuff years ago, but I felt I had to customize to fit my own modality of doing tarot. And so I only have 3 spreads. One is the situational spread, which is like a diagnostic tool. The other one is the relationship spread. I use that a lot in personal private readings. And the other one is my heart spread, which I also do really only in private readings. So, because those deal with typically very private, deep, profound issues that you would not want to share on a live mini reading with the public. Alrighty, so with that said, what kind of messages do we have here tonight for Love Triber regarding the subject of ... Cards are well shuffled, as you witnessed. No reversals. I love the artwork the way it was originally intended by the artist. Nobody who goes to see the Mona Lisa likes to see it upside down. They want to see it the way the artist made it. And that's how I feel. Okie dokie, let's have a look here. Alright, here's the situation. Here's the challenges. Here's how we're going to handle things. And we're going to look at external influences. I almost always default to the planets, but you never know. Sometimes it's a personalized type of feeling. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. All right, you remember, this is just a diagnostic tool. It would be the equivalent of Love Triber taking a car over to one of those auto tech places, and the blinky lights on the dashboard are going orange, orange, orange. You run inside and say, hey, listen, my blinky lights are going orange, orange, orange. Can you help me? And one of the technicians comes out and says, madam, don't worry, we've got this. And they go underneath your dashboard and they plug in the black box. And they sit there for a few minutes, and eventually the black box gives you a reading. You gotta reveal it to heal it. So once they know what it is, once they have revealed the problem, then they can heal it. Like, oh, you've got a gimpy O2 sensor. Oh, your catalytic converter is screwed up, and so on and so on and so on. And then you can heal it. Okay, so that's how that works. Here we go. What's going on out there? So we've got judgment. Okay, so my feeling is that there's this like big, deep urge going on for like anticipation of freedom, liberation, liberty from, I guess you could say, the shackles of conditioning. Let's put it that way. Because at a certain point in life, a lot of us come to a realization like, wow, a lot of my perceptions, behaviors, actions, belief systems, relationships, desires, pretty much everything how you perceive life is a result of conditioning from when I was a little child. Even from before, even when you were inside the womb, you're already being conditioned. When you're a little infant inside the womb, you actually look like a baby, a real live newborn baby, except you're inside the womb, covered in the amniotic sac. But that little baby can hear things and sense things, rumblings and the mother rolling around. If there's somebody screaming and yelling in the background, if there's happy noises in the background, it will come through the womb and the little baby will feel that. That's conditioning. If there's a lot of hostility and violence and screaming and yelling, the baby will feel that. The baby's already being conditioned. In other words, there's a very dangerous world out there once I pop out and I'm born. And so on. So you go through the years of life, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you go different chapters. There are certain chapters where children have definite landmarks. The most common ones that I've known, because I've sort of raised as a stepdad about 7 children. One of them happens at year 7, year 14, year 21, and year 29. It's roughly associated with the Saturn cycle. But you break up the Saturn cycle. I'm just going to do an illustration here. Let's choose Saturn. So let's say this is the little baby right now. This is not Love Triber. I'm just doing an analogy, okay? Let's say this little baby was just born today, and this is their astrology chart. So what happens, they're going to have a Saturn cycle, which goes from here to here over a period of 29, 30 years, roughly. Now what happens is that roughly every quarter, in other words, at this position, then this position, then this position, then this position, there can be some very stark moments of, let's say, volatility, instability. And that roughly coincides with the angles, the hard angles, okay? Over here, when Saturn reaches this point, for example, it would be in hard square to its original Saturn. When Saturn reaches over here, it's in full opposition. When Saturn reaches here, it's in a hard square again. Now, age 14, 14 and a quarter, 14 and a half to 15 is notorious for children being very, very, let's say, rambunctious, rebellious, and starting to resist and react and carve out their space and challenge their conditioning from birth, depending on how you're born and raised or whatever. But that's where kids, the terrible teens, roughly 14 and a half years old, parents start noticing, our kids going absolutely berserk here. They're starting to kick back. They're starting to challenge our authority as parents, and so on and so on. At the quarter marks here and here, it's not so openly, assertively opposing the original conditioning. It's more reactionary. In other words, age 7 and age 14, age 7 and 21 can be very reactionary, where there might be a lot of stress in the young person. And eventually when they reach 29 and a half, they get their Saturn return. So what I'm sensing, sorry, this is a very long-winded description of one card. What I'm sensing for you, Love Triber, is that the Judgment card is indicating that you've reached a point in life where I am ready to shake off the shackles, the remaining shackles of my conditioning. Where I was born, my certain kind of mom and dad, the environment in which I was raised, the culture, the country, where I was blueprinted and conditioned. I am now ready to release myself as a fully fledged sovereign being with my own belief systems that I have crafted for myself, sometimes in very, very difficult ways, but it's very, very liberating. It's an amazing feeling to be free. To be free from the shackles of conditioning, the shackles of, let's see, the Saturn pressures that were forced upon you that you might have challenged or had a lot of problems dealing with as a child. I mean, it's so obvious to see it in young people today. A lot of people, young people, are having a very, very hard time because they have very unstructured childhood. And children need structure. They want strong, good, loving, caring parenting. It might not always be comfortable, but they love that because in the end, it creates tremendous platform for them later on. But for you, Love Triber, my feeling here is like, you know what? I've reached it. I've done it. I'm done with, let's say, subconscious conditioning. I am done with programming, societal programming. I'm done with saying okay to the status quo. I want liberty. I want freedom. I deserve it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to have it. I own it. I want it. I'm going to take it. I'm not going to ask for permission. Hallelujah. I am free. By declaration, I am a free being. That's also very scary because like, what do I do now? Now that I am, let's say, looking out the window, looking at life with this newly found perspective. Okay, let's have a look. What's the situation itself? Okay, so it would be perfectly okay to have some flashbacks right now. We've got 4 major planets retrograde. You're a very loving person, I'm sure, Love Triber. And so it would make sense at a certain point in life where you would look back and think, oh my God, I gave everything I had. I was so loving towards my boyfriends, my mom, my dad, my other friends, my partners, my co-workers, everything like that. And what did I get? What did I get? Where was all the love for me? Who loves me? Who loved me through all of that? Okay, now another thing about this card, you have to be very careful. You have to remember that energy flows where attention goes. And so with all these massive retrogrades, it would be perfectly natural to take a long look back at your life and ponder about anything and everything that went wrong with whatever. People, jobs, places, history, and have lots of feelings of remorse, regret. But the real power is in the now, the healing power of now. And in the moment of now, if you notice, there's a little tiny Ace of Cups right there, sitting right in front of you. And it's yours for the taking. And it's allowing you to restart, reprogram, realign, to go forward where, yes, these could be calibrated as wounds, suffering, pain from the past, but you've outgrown that. You have literally outgrown your conditioning. You still have characteristics and hallmarks of conditioning, but that conditioning no longer owns you. You own it. Okay, so what are the challenges here? Okay, the Empress. How am I going to formally reclaim my most awesome self now that I have demanded and claimed my liberty, my freedom? Because I, Love Triber, know that this is my awesome self. Yes, I am freaking awesome. I am the Empress. However, sometimes I don't feel like it. I really, really don't feel like it. I feel like I'm just the opposite. I'm just the opposite. And then, and you realize, oh God, I'm slipping back into the Three of Cups. Damn it. And so this is a big problem, because it's like, again, we were talking about opening up the window, opening up the front door of life and looking at the world around you and saying, screw it, I'm going to go out there into the big wide world. I'm free now. I have matured. I have grown. I'm no longer subject to the conditioning of my life. And then you leap forward into the unknown. You seize your freedom and scream, yes, I'm free. And then, I have to do a bit of acting here. Sorry. Yay, I did it. I did it. I have liberated myself. Look at me. I'm a free person. Ah! Oh my God. That means I have to learn everything all over again. Am I really that awesome? Oh no, oh no, oh no. And then you might feel like I'm going to shrink. I'm just going to go back. I'm going to go back. At least I know where I was. I'm right there. In other words, you know what? I think I'd rather just have the devil I know. Maybe I don't really want to be free. It's horrible. Freedom means seeing everything in its blinding clarity and truth. Everything is exactly as it should be. Why is it so? How is it so? It can't be any other way. It's physics. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. Water is wet. The sun is hot. Ice is cold. Evil is evil. Good is good. You look outside the front door and you realize, my God, there's a lot of evil. But there's also good stuff happening. And so you have to learn how to recalibrate and re-navigate. Because effectively, by claiming your liberty, claiming your sovereign self, and saying goodbye to the shackles and the conditioning of the past, you're effectively, without declaring it or necessarily realizing it, you are entering a brand new world where everything is still brand new, but the perception is different, and you basically are going to have to recalibrate. But it's you calibrating you. It's no longer you being calibrated by external conditioning, like mom, dad, school teachers, society, friends, neighbors from childhood when I was a teenager, or anything like that. It's all about you, real time now, in the present now, like dealing with stark, glaring reality as it is right now, and then calibrating yourself accordingly. And that's really scary, because it's like, oh my God, that's work. I have to start my whole freaking life again? Is that what you're saying, TL? Well, almost. But it is a way to reclaim your sovereign self, and this symbolizes your most sovereign, awesome self. Okay, think of that. Empress is very powerful feminine energy. Beauty, serenity, dignity, demanding and getting respect. No apologies, living in your glory, living in your life, light, living in your sovereign sense of self and identity without apologizing. In other words, you don't have to dumb yourself down to fit in with other people who are suffering. You can be your most awesome, glorious self, because that's the best thing you can be, not only for yourself, but ultimately for the world. It's just that sometimes conditioning tells us, no, I can't do that. I can't be that. People are going to criticize me. People are going to tell me I'm a megalomaniac. I'm an egomaniac. I'm a narcissist. How are we going to deal with this moving forward? Let's have a look. So with the Seven of Swords, my feeling is moving forward, you have to be very, very, very careful in the process of reclaiming your sovereign self because of previous conditioning. You might have come from a life of previous conditioning where there was lots of very subtle deception, betrayal, lies, theft, blackmail, manipulation, illusions, delusions that appeared to be normal life and reality. And you might have been exploited and, let's say, betrayed by others. And that's sort of ingrained. And like, how do you proceed? Well, it means that because you might be naturally conditioned in the past to having, let's say, belief systems and experiences that were actually not in your best interests, imposed upon you by others, where you might have just, what's the word? Just were ingrained that the world is a really shitty place where everybody lies, cheats, and steals from each other, and that is the only way to proceed and advance in life. Okay? And so every time you kind of encounter a situation where your sense of freedom feels like, oh, I have to check myself. Like, in other words, let's say your intuition now tells you that this, and this is correct. This is my new reality. But you are so conditioned by unhealthy things that you are constantly disparaging your sovereign self and to diminish yourself, so that your natural awesome self is diminished to this. And that's not your fault. But you have to remember, going forward, so I was programmed, conditioned that way. But once you realize that, then you can sort of realize, what I just witnessed, or what I'm having to deal with, is actually a form of a very powerful, very effective, subtle form of treachery, lies, betrayal, deception externally. And once you realize that, it's just like, I know your game, dear world. I know how you operate now. I know how to deal with things now. I'm smart enough, I'm intelligent enough to find a workaround. Ha, 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 ha. I can do that. You think you could work your way around me and steal and undermine me? I know every trick in the book now. You'd be shocked at what I know now. All those tiny little lies, frauds, that turned me from this into this. Ha! I know every trick. I know every freaking scam, trick, lie there is. And all I have to do is spot it. Ha ha ha! And then you can move on and constantly grab hold of this one. Realign your energy to the good stuff, refusing over and over again to be a victim, to wallow in pain and suffering and conditioning from the past. Okay? So in some ways, yes, this looks like a scary card, but it's actually a blessing. Know your enemy. Okay? So what I'm sensing here, the finale of the reading is to know your enemy. The thing is, you already know your enemy. You, because of experience and conditioning, you know so much about all the tricks and shenanigans that people in society use as a way to undermine your sovereignty, your wealth, your abundance, your beauty, your power. And you can kind of go, oh, really? Oh, okay. Oh, sure. All right, okay. Does that make sense? I hope so. I hope it makes sense. Anyway, dear Love Triber, there's your mini reading. All right, thank you very much. I'm just going to shuffle this up, put it away. I don't see any more bookings, so that's pretty much the end of the evening. Folks, we had one mini reading. Thank you for all hanging out. I hope some of you also got something out of this mini reading. What's that about a blindfold? I missed up on that. I messed up. I'm sorry. I'm just going to shuffle these into clarity. I'm going to tuck these over here for a moment. And we're going to just hang out for a moment and wrap things up here. All right, where are we? Okay, just as a reference point, I'll leave this here for everybody. We'll just let people soak this in for a moment. This is where we are today. Things will change tomorrow. The most significant change, of course, will be the moon, which will be over here, and Venus will be tucking in further and further over here. I hope you got something out of all of this astrodoodle tonight. Take it with you. Bright Light Beckaboo. Oh, Beckaboo, man. You're coming in a little bit late, aren't you? Typically, it's about $1,000, $2,000. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I don't like saying dollar signs on the show because it feels like I'm forcing people to spend more than they might have or more than what they might want. But I've had donations of anything from $5 up to $150 for a mini reading. Mostly it's quite a bit lower than the big numbers. So Bright Light Beckaboo, sure, if you want to do that, okay. Thank you, Love Triber. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Love Triber. Wow, thank you for the support there. Yeah, so Bright Light Beckaboo, thank you for asking. A donation is something that represents value. If you think the reading has value, how much value does the reading have to you? Some people have paid me a lot of money for private readings because sometimes we go very, very deep and we deal with some very, very challenging issues. And so effectively what you're paying for is, I guess you could say, my time or my skills or all the above. Like going to a doctor or a dentist or a psychiatrist or a business consultant or something like that. Anyway, I think what we're going to do for now is, because I'm actually suffering from a little bit of burnout. The last couple of nights have been I'm very depleted. I'd love to do another reading, but I'm actually going to take advantage of the moment. I'm going to invite you, Bright Light Beckaboo, if you want to, go ahead and book a mini reading, but we can do something private in the week, or you can pay in advance for something next Sunday. Or you can just come back next Sunday and put something in the pot, okay? You can practice the process of putting in a donation if you don't want to do it live now. I understand. I totally get it, all right? Okay. So, hold on, let me just check something here. No, I don't see. I'm going to check a couple of things. I'm just doing some background work. Yeah, we're good. Okay. All right, I'm going to leave it at that, folks. Thank you very much for hanging out. Thank you very much for being here. I'm going to wrap it up very quickly, and you can all enjoy the rest of your remaining hours of the day or the evening or the night. And we start everything again next week. If you find value here, please come to TarotLumination on RUMBLE. I'm doing almost everything on that platform now. It sort of looks like what we're doing here, but the platform operates, to me it's technically different, and I'm still learning a lot how to navigate the platform. And on the platform they have something equivalent of a super chat where you could do live donations real time, just clicking a button, and it's something called a rant. So what I would do is invite you to go visit TarotLumination on and click through today or last night's astrology report, and you can see what I'm talking about. If you like what you see, go to the chat, go to the comment section, and you will see a big green button with a dollar sign. You can put tips in there. It's much better than Super Chat. If you put $10 in the rant, it comes $10 to TarotLumination. I don't have to give 30-40% of it to YouTube. Okay? So I'm shifting everything onto the new platform. I'm going to keep doing the Sunday night lives here until we basically pretty much migrate everything over to the other platform. I don't know what else to do anymore. Oh, what? You're a tarot. What are you doing? Why didn't you tell us? Oh my God. Actually, I should have guessed, because pretty much everyone who ends up at this channel is either a tarot reader, a card reader, a psychic medium, a energy healer, Reiki, some kind of advanced yoga healer or something like that. So, bright light, Becca Boop. I guess we should have figured it out. Thank you for hanging out with us, and hope to see you again soon. Please come and join me over on the platform, okay? Over there I can speak freely, speak openly. Also, by the way, I have started to archive as much as I can onto my X. That way you'll get a much better understanding, a bigger, richer understanding of what we do here and how we do it, where I openly share my opinions and my belief systems, my beliefs, which is how and why I got into so much trouble on this YouTube. Okay, so cheerio. Take care, everybody. Be loving, be loved. Have a wonderful evening.